Hello, my loyal companions. Welcome to episode 12 of RogueCast, your dedicated Rogue Company podcast and one-stop shop for all the latest news, exclusive interviews, and clips of the week. In today's video, we'll be catching up on all the news this week, including going over the major bugs and Hi-Rez's response to the issues that are currently coming out. We also then have a slightly different interview style today. Instead of me having a guest on, I've asked you, the community, to get involved and ask me different questions that I've gone through and answered in a Q&A format. I then, of course, have the standard clip of the week, which I think you're going to like. I am your host, Radha. Let's get into the RogueCast. Okay, so going into the news this week, there's not been a lot of new updates in terms of content being added, but there's a lot to discuss still, particularly going over some of the bugs and issues that we're seeing currently within the game, the Hi-Rez response to this, and the community response to this. I'll delve into it a lot more in the Q&A because there have been a lot of questions on this, obviously. But in terms of some of the bugs, we have bugs with Dahlia linking where it just isn't working. We have PS4 bugs where it's blue screening all the time, making the game unplayable for people. We have bugs with the Xbox Series X, which I don't know whether this is a them issue or a Hi-Rez issue. I believe it's probably the Series X issues, where you're getting sort of disco graphical glitch scenes, which are not great. You also then have Switch issues, which are causing massive problems for Switch players. Then there are some other issues and bugs that are coming up, including the removal of shooting range for a large period of this week. It is now back, thankfully. Shooting range is playable again, as well as the tutorial. But the arena also has been pulled due to frame rate issues and other lag issues associated with it. There's been a lot of bugs and the community have not been very happy with it, but Hi-Rez are trying to get on top of it and are trying to respond to us. A big part of that response actually came yesterday from a letter from Hi-Rez Chris, who very openly and honestly spoke about the issues, how they felt that they have not done a great job at handling them so far and how they want to do better and how they want to improve and what their plans are to do this. I think this is definitely needed by the community. The community have been very unhappy. I myself have been pretty unhappy with the state of the game currently. And having this just to enforce to us that they know that the issues are there. A post also came out on Reddit about it and how they want to address it, the timescale to address it. The Dahlia fix should be coming into next week, hopefully, is what they were saying. So having that information, knowing shooting range is back, and just seeing that there is progress and there is thoughts and care from the developers has been a big weight off a lot of people's shoulders, thankfully. So great job on that letter. Really nice, open honesty and earnestness coming out from them. They also made headway in the last few days with the recent hotfix that did bring back shooting range, as I said, but also addressed some of the issues with Fixer, particularly his balancing. Fixer has been dominating the scene ever since he came out. He's very, very strong with a very fast fire rate on that tier, an amazing pistol that was just destroying everything, and an ability that honestly is so strong and is almost core to any team or any game that you're playing in. The hotfix did, and I'll put it up on screen here for you, is it reduced the fire rate of the tier from 3.8 seconds to 3 seconds. It also took away a lot of the stats from the warrant, so that it has a decreased damage range, body shot damage, and headshot damage. And finally, the thermal vision, his ability, they reduced the time of it from 16 seconds down to 12 seconds. I'll go into a little bit more of that in the Q&A. It was a question that was asked, so I do go into a bit more detail about what I think of those changes over there, so make sure you don't miss out on the Q&A. And the only real final thing that has been noticeable in the news this week is going over the new Limited Time Gamemode that was added, Strikeout Unlocked. This is essentially for all you players, all the rogues are unlocked. And it's just standard strikeout. So for most players who have all the rogues, it's just strikeout. But for the players who don't have it, want to try out with different rogues, you can now go do that. I think it's great for those players. For me personally, it doesn't really matter. And for a lot of the community, it doesn't really matter. But if you're new to the game, want to figure out what rogues you like, go try it out. You get to play with some of the rogues in an actual game rather than just the shooting range. That's it for the news. Now we'll get onto the Q&A, which is where I brought your questions that you guys asked on either Twitter or Discord. Make sure you're following me on Twitter or joined up to my Discord so that you are involved with these sort of community things that I'm doing. But I do want to put out one disclaimer. I do not work for Hi-Rez or I'm not affiliated or associated with Rogue Company. I do have a lot of experience with the game. I've played since closed beta. I put out a video every single day since then, so I am pretty well informed to make these opinions. But at the end of the day, I do not work for them. I cannot say what they're going to do with the game for sure. It's purely my opinion and prediction. So do take that into mind. I got a lot of questions saying, what are you going to do to fix rank? I'm going to do nothing. I'm just going to keep making videos and address the issues with you guys, but it's up to Hi-Rez to actually make the changes going forward. So these are my thoughts, opinions, and predictions based on your questions that you guys asked. The first question comes from Igor Tully on Twitter. He asks, will Hi-Rez look at placement matches in ranked and how long will ranked season be? Now again, I don't work for Hi-Rez, I don't work for Rogue Company, so I can't say for certainty exactly the answer to these questions, but I can give my predictions on what I think. In terms of placement matches, I would be severely disappointed and surprised if they didn't add placement matches to the game. I think most ranks offer placement matches so that you can see exactly where you sort of fit at the start of the season. I don't think that by having them, you're creating a disadvantage. I think everyone starting at the bottom really sort of ruins the player experience for those players who belong in those lower levels, and for the players who should be up at the top levels. No one wants to start their climb in bronze when they should be starting in silver gold area. I think the ideal sort of placement match you could do is 10 placement games, 5 placement games, whatever it be, and you get placed somewhere between bronze, silver, gold. Potentially, if you were like Rogue last season, you could be placed in early plat, but I don't think it should be anywhere above that. I think you should start your grind somewhere in that spectrum, start winning your games, and start climbing up there. Although it does sort of depend on the player base being big enough so that you can filter people out close enough in that area. I think that's why they opted for a non-placement game system this time, is so that you could sort of have everyone playing games at the same time when it first launched, which you may not get if you have placement matches and spread people out. As for the second part to his question, how long will a ranked season be? I have no idea. Based off other games, I would say when they go into full launch of the game, that's when ranked beta will end. So ranked beta is known as season 0 of Rogue Company ranked. So I would imagine when the game goes into full release, hopefully after Christmas, hopefully after into the new year, early new year, that's when we'll get the first season of ranked. Then I imagine it's going to sort of either be somewhere in this spectrum. It's either going to be a 3-month season for renewal of the Battle Pass, going to be a 6-month season, going to be a 9-month season with a 3-month pre-season. That is potentially likely. That's the League of Legends way. I don't really think that's going to happen too much, but that is a possibility. And then you also have the standard year-long 12-month season. That's how long you have. Personally, I feel like a 6-month season, like a two splits in a year might be the best method. But let me know in the comments what you guys think, how often you would like the ranks to reset and the grind to recontinue. Personally, either 6 months or 12 months are ideal for me. The next question comes from VIP Angel of Death on Twitter. What do you think the Battle Pass will bring, and will ranked experience combine with this? So I believe what you mean there is, will the experience you gain from ranked games help move to the Battle Pass? In terms of that part of the question, yes, I don't see why any game that you play other than customs wouldn't help your Battle Pass progression. As for what I think of the Battle Pass and what would it bring to the game, I think it's going to be really good for the grinders, people who like to grind that Battle Pass. But based on my experience with Call of Duty and their Battle Pass, which I think was well done, when you play the game a lot anyway, it doesn't really matter. You're getting cosmetic things. They're not going to add any massive like unlockables. It's not going to be that sort of, you have to use the Battle Pass to get the best weapons or whatever. There's no new weapons going to be added in. If they are, they'll be eventually able for free, I imagine. But I do think the Battle Pass will add a good little bit of flair to the game, a nice bit of little grinding for those cosmetics. I imagine some people will grind to be the first person to complete the Battle Pass, although that's not really a massive achievement. But I think the Battle Pass will be good for the game. I think, obviously it's a revenue option for them, it's a cosmetic option for us. All we got to do is probably pay, I'm going to guess, around $10 for the Battle Pass, and then grind it out to get some nice cosmetics. And I think, a lot of games are adopting this method, and I think there's no reason Rogue Company will not. And hopefully they just do a good job of it, add some good, worthwhile cosmetics. Personally, 100 levels, probably likely. 30 levels maybe if they're keeping in with that theme, but 100 is most likely based on other games and experience I have with them. The next question comes from Big Z EU on Twitter. Will there be some sort of solo queuing option coming to ranked, as it is difficult or sometimes unenjoyable to play versus 4-mans? Now, I agree with this. Again, I do not have Hi-Rez, so I cannot say for sure whether this will happen, but in terms of my opinion on whether it should happen, 100% yes. I 100% think that solo queues and should be split from team queues. My personal thoughts on this is that you should maybe have a solo/duo queue, that's one, and then a team queue 4-man stack queue as another, with 2 completely separate ranks. Just because you're rogue in the 4-man queue does not mean you should be rogue in the solo queue. And then the community can decide which one they value the most in terms of finding out who's the best player. I imagine solo queue will sort of determine who the best player is, and then the 4-man queue will sort of determine who the best team is. And that'll be really good for teams to just get some 4-mans in there, always play against 4-mans, and always treat them like scrims if they're in the higher levels. I think that's a really good option. I think having that separation for that alone is worth it. But then also for you solo players who don't find it enjoyable to go against 4-mans who just roll you, because that is what happens. Coordination is such a massive part of this game. So having 4-mans going in solos is pretty unhealthy, I think. So I would love to see a solo queue, would love to see a team queue, completely separate ranks. And also as a content creator, would love to do a solo queue series where I'm always going in solos or duos. I think that's much healthier for the game, much healthier for content, and much healthier for the player enjoyable experience. So great question. Next question comes from ScorpionCraft55. Do you think the content feels rushed? So this is a difficult question because there's a lot of the community who are begging for content. They want more content to come out of this game. And then there's also always the argument that it's just a ranked beta. Whenever something fails, you get the, oh, it's a ranked beta, or it's a beta argument. Now, I don't particularly agree with this. I think this game is in far too big a state at the moment in terms of it's fully monetized. All the core features are here. The only thing we're missing is a battle pass, really, and spectator mode for customs, both of which are not essential to the game to make it a playable experience. I think most of the game is here, and it's not really a beta anymore. They're just sort of testing out some of the final features, and so I'm not really enjoying the beta argument. I don't think you can really add that in anymore. I think you have to accept the game for what it is and kind of leave it at that. This is basically a full release of the game. You can say it's beta to hide some of the issues of the bugs, but I don't think that's particularly fair. As for the content, do I think they've got to this stage, this basically out of beta stage, too early? Potentially. Maybe ranked was rushed. I heard a really good argument from Diehard GG that they should have added the battle pass in before they added ranked in. Gave themselves a little bit more time to test all the features, make it a really good system, and then also give us that cosmetic grindiness that we want. I think that actually would have been a fine option. Delay it 2 or 3 weeks for the battle pass instead. Give us like 2 or 3 weeks to grind the battle pass, and then we can start grinding ranked with a bit more of a polished system. I think that maybe would have helped them with a lot of their server issues, and just figure them out before we get into the drama that occurred with ranked. So I think that's I do think it's a little bit rushed. I think the community are obviously asking for it, but the game devs shouldn't really fall under that pressure. They should acknowledge that we know you want this, it is on our agenda. We will continue to talk about these features with you. We'll continue to update you on how it's going, give you little teasers, but we are not going to accelerate it past the point that we feel comfortable giving you a delivered product. I generally think this is a great thing in life generally. Do not over rush something. Make sure you're doing everything to perfection. If that is sort of the mindset you want to go on, and particularly as game developers where all eyes are on you, you need to be making sure you're putting out premium quality products. And in this case, they fell a little bit short with this for ranked, particularly with all the server issues that came along with it. So yes, a little bit rushed, partly to the fault of the community, but partly to the fault of the developers for just not sort of sticking up for themselves and saying, look, we know you want this, we will give it to you, but in our time. And I think a lot of people would have respected that. When they delayed it, we respected that. A lot of us, we were saying, look, get your systems in place, make this good, because your game is dependent on this ranked beta going good. And it's a bit iffy, and that kind of goes into our next question from Hot Gamer Rusco. He asked, what do you think the current state of the game? Now, I've been very vocal about this on Twitter, I've been very vocal about this in my streams, and I've said the game currently is in not a very good state. The introduction of ranked, which was not a very good system with basically no matchmaking currently, and just all the issues that I've kind of gone into depth with before. If you actually want to see a little bit more information on what I think about ranked, I did do a video with Octane Pro TV. I'll leave the link to the video in the top of the description so you can go see that video. We talk about ranked beta and all the problems with it, so we're going a little bit more into depth there with him. But generally, in terms of a little brief overview of what I think the current state of the game is, we're in a rough spot, a lot of bugs, a lot of issues, and not great communication from the devs at this point. They're normally so good, but they kind of fell short the last 2 weeks or so, not giving us sort of the answers we wanted, and instead giving us animations and cinematics for Fixer when we didn't want that. We wanted to know when ranked beta was going to be out because they said it was coming out, they delayed it, then they didn't give us another date that it might come out on, which I think was the right move. But you can't do that after giving us a date beforehand, then cancelling that date, and then not giving us another date. There was just a lot of communication issues, a lot of not thinking about how the community would react to their decisions, I think. And generally, there was just that miscommunication. There was a miscommunication in terms of probably with each other about some of the issues and just how they're going to get them out. Shooting range being disabled for so long was a massive problem. As a competitor in this game, having shooting range to warm up in is massive. The real essentials of it is that it gets you into the flow of shooting without thinking about your aim and not having to really consider where your aim is, and so that's a massive part. Other than that, though, hoping the game is moving forward. That actually leads on slightly to a question by Skippy. He asked, is the game dying? To which I'm going to say no. I do not think the game is dying. I think it just hit a lull in this period in the all the fixings update, and they're trying to address it. I think they've already started to make slightly better progress in giving us some information of how they're going to address it, acknowledging the problems, and giving us almost a timeline of saying how they're going to do it. And that came from the letter that was done by Chris, one of the Hi-Rez Chris, one of the lead developers and consultants there on the game. He gave us a pretty good letter sort of outlining the problems, their acknowledgement of their issues, and how they plan to fix them, which was good, a good step for us who were doubting. So I don't think the game is dying. I think we're in a lull. I think the player base is in a lull. There's a lot of games coming out at the moment that are going to compete with Rogue Company in terms of players' attention. That's going to cause it to be a bit of an issue. But as this game continues to grow, as more comes out, as the Battle Pass comes out, as it becomes a full release, you're going to see a lot more hype for the game again. It keeps going up in these ups and downs, these troughs and highs, and we just got to sort of get through these periods. Although I will admit, with all the bugs, with all the issues and the disappointment of ranked beta, it didn't feel good for a couple of days there. Cool. Now going on to the next question. What do you say about the priorities of the dev team? Again, by Hot Gamer Rusco. Kind of the same thing. I think I kind of answered that there. The priorities to put out a cinematic for Fixer over giving us information about ranked or the issues that are happening with Switch or the issues that happen with PlayStation or any of that really was not the right decision. And I know they're two different teams. I know that one team handles the cinematics, they want to get that out. The other team are handling the bug issues. But you have to think of it from an outside perspective of what does the community see? Well, we see a bunch of issues and a cinematic for Fixer. Great. I don't care if that cinematic for Fixer is done and ready to go and give us a nice bit of hype. I want to see the acknowledgement of issues that are coming and how you're going to fix it before I see a Fixer update, So I kind of think that was in the wrong spot. I think they're just trying to get out whatever content they have ready out, but not think about the order which is coming out and how we want to see it, if that makes sense. And I think that kind of comes up to that question earlier about is the content being rushed? Yes, I think they're just getting the content they have, putting it out, and not thinking about the order, as I mentioned. Going on to the next question, this comes from Electric from my Discord. He asks, what are some potential improvements for ranked? Now, I talked about this a little bit, and again, I went into a bit more detail in Octane's video, but I will sort of go over an overview now. I think ranked needs a few different features that haven't been implemented. The first is placements. We talked about that at the top of the Q&A. Placements are a massive thing to help separate the ranks in the early stages. I think it needs a matchmaking system based off of MMR, not based off of rank. Now, what this means is basically MMR is taking into account your win streak, your loss streak, sometimes player performance, so I think that's a little bit too in-depth, but just going off win streak and how you're performing against other teams. So if you have a high MMR and you get someone with a low MMR, which means you're better than them, you shouldn't earn as much as you would if you went against someone who has more MMR than you. That makes sense because in theory it's a higher challenge. It's sort of like a leveling system within itself, like a placement system, like a leaderboard. And although it's kind of hard to code, and I kind of understand why they didn't do that for the ranked beta, I think moving into the full release of ranked, having that system will be a lot better and just helping equal out the XP. Kind of going on to that, plus 24 minus 6, and then it does change as you get higher up in the ranks. It goes to like plus 19 minus 11, and I believe it goes to plus 16 minus 12 or something. That's not it can't be that stagnant amount for the different ranks. It just needs to be based off something fluid, based off win streaks, based off loss streaks, based off am I playing teams who are better than me? Am I placing against 4 bands and I'm a solo? Do I deserve more XP for winning those matches, and do I deserve less for losing them because they're much harder? That's kind of what the MMR system would bring in, and a lot fairer ranking system and a lot fairer climbing. It kind of rewards people who are going on a massive win streak and doesn't punish people who are, just trying to hit in that 50% mark. And that kind of goes into the XP again. 20%? 20% win rate to climb, not good enough. Really, 20-25% to get up to diamond, that's just not on. You need 50-50. You're staying exactly where you are. You are in the right rank. You're gaining as much and you're losing if you're on that 50% win rate. If you're above 60, you should be climbing pretty fast. If you're below 40, you should be dropping really quickly. There's a general formula for ranked in certain games, and it's the 40-40-20. And what this means is 40% of games, you're always going to lose. 40% of games, you're always going to win. The 20% is where you as a player make up that difference. So what you'll see in really well-structured ranked systems where, games are sort of come and go with the tide is your best players have a 60% win rate, your worst players have a 40% win rate, and that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Okay, going on to some of the last few questions then. This one comes from Forks by Jean over on my Discord. He asks, why do I find the game unenjoyable after 2 or 3 hours of playing? Now, this is more of a personal question, but I'll try and answer it because I think maybe a lot of people have this struggle. The game is repetitive. You can definitely say that, although a lot of games nowadays are repetitive unless it's a single player story-based game. When you're loading up into matches that are 15 minutes, 2 or 3 hours, that's 8 to 12 games. That's quite a lot of time, a lot of doing the same thing. And depending on how you're playing those games will also depend on how much you're enjoying it. If you're playing ranked for 2 or 3 hours and you're on a loss streak, you're not going to enjoy that. If you're sort of going 50-50 in your games, you know, you're not, it's kind of enjoyable, just depends how much you enjoy the basic mechanics of the game, and that might be the issue. Maybe you just don't enjoy the basic mechanics of the game, but maybe you do, and you just find that playing the same thing over and over again for 3 hours isn't quite your style, and that's fair. Take a break, go do something else, play another game, then come back to it. If Rogue Company is a game you want to grind, it's definitely repetitive in sense, particularly if you're playing the same rogue, and that's kind of one of the other reasons why I suggest everyone be adaptable and play multiple rogues, blend into different situations, and also just change it up for yourself while you're playing. You don't want to get burnt out, you don't want to get stagnant on this game. You want to be feeling like every game is enjoyable and fun. So whatever you can do to do that, definitely go for it. The next question comes from Lord of the Pit. He asks, are the constant issues and bugs turning players away from the game? I mean, yes, for sure. Are people being too harsh on the game and moving away from it too quickly? Maybe. I think people know the history with Hi-Rez. Hi-Rez games have issues. They don't address those issues very well, and they kind of seem like they abandon the game after a period of time. So far, we've seen the issues. We haven't seen too bad handling of the issues. A little bit this week. But generally, I think people may be being a bit too harsh on the game, bringing in too much experience from other Hi-Rez games such as Paladins, Realm, and kind of Smite. I think Smite's done pretty well though, and not really giving Rogue its fair shot. I think Rogue, whilst it has issues occasionally, it is still a great game. It is pretty polished. The bugs are annoying. They do need to fix them quicker. They do need to be more open with us about them. But I don't think players should move away from the game as quickly. I think this game has massive potential, and the community kind of knows that. The competitive community knows that. But I think the biggest issues sometimes are that competitive community. A lot of toxicity over there, a lot of ego over there. And that, for me, turns me away from the game more than anything. But yes, I definitely think constant issues are not helpful for the game, particularly when they're as major as they can be. You even saw it with Call of Duty Warzone, when they had that visual bug where your gun would basically become this big like polygon structure in front of you and you couldn't see anything when you're spectating someone. Lots of the big creators were like, nope, I'm off this game. And so you have to be careful with major bugs like this. You have to get them in the bud, nip them in the bud as soon as possible, so you're not having to deal with them. And then final question comes from Duckframe. These are thoughts on the fixer nerf that we mentioned in the news. I actually think they were okay. I think that the Warrant needed that nerf. I think you kind of feel it's a little bit weaker now, which is good. I think the tier fire rate is unnoticeable with 2 shots. If it was 5 shots, you would notice it because there's more, you feel that fire rate drop. But with 2 shots, you don't really feel it. It's still bam bam. It would have to go to down something like 2 for you to really feel it. Because you got to imagine, Platinum's one I believe is 0.8. So from 0.8 to 3, that's still a massive difference. So you will not really feel it too much over just 2 shots. And then in terms of the ability nerf, going from 16 seconds to 10 seconds, I'm going to go out and say this is a buff. The reason I'm going to say this is because the smokes that you throw and the smokes that are there don't last more than 10 seconds anyway, so you had so much time after the smoke is gone with your thermal, and whilst it's cool and you can kind of see people through walls, not through walls, like you can see that where they're corner peeking, you can kind of see their outline or like the blur of their thermal signature. That's useful, but it removes so much of your UI. You can't see grenade indicators, you can't really see your health going down, you cannot see when you're standing in a Molotov. So I think having that reduced when you don't need it through the smoke is actually kind of useful, because it was bugging me a lot having it on past the smoke time when I didn't really need it, and getting caught by a grenade because they can see me now. I can see them without the thermal vision, but I can't see the grenade that's hurling at me. So yeah, I definitely think on that aspect it might be a bit of a buff, but that's up for discussion. I think the fix enough was good, necessary. I would have preferred them to have fixed Dahlia first, so if I'm going to be honest, or at least move it in with that hotfix, because yeah, we need the Dahlia fix pretty pronto. Dahlia is a massive part of competitive play, and the fact we don't have her at the moment is a little yikes. Cool. So they are the majority of the questions that I vetted through and thought were useful for you guys to know for this Q&A. If you did enjoy and you actually want to see more things like this, let me know in the comments. Normally, and I will continue to have my special guests on so that we can see perspectives from different players. But I think getting you guys as the community involved in some of these episodes of RogueCast is going to be really good for us, and really good just to help other people with these same questions know a little bit more about my thoughts and about the community's thoughts on these different topics. So I want to thank you all for submitting your questions, and enjoy the clip of the week. This week's clip comes from Fadeless HD, stuck on this Lancer in a 1v4 situation on Demolition. But if anyone's going to put it off, it's going to be that Lancer with that roll reload. Let's see what happens. Okay, sees the demon there, completely unaware of his location. Shark jumps the wall. He's got to finish this kill though because he may self-revive. You hear it going off now. Now he's in a 1v2. Got a lot of advantage here. Sees the Fixer behind the wall. Fixer misses a shot, but the Ronin's there to kind of cut it up. She gets down the Ronin. Fixer standing still, isn't aware of how to do it, and gets the down to win the game for his team. 7-5. Nice clutch. Okay then guys, it's going to take us to the end of RogueCast, and if you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more weekly episodes coming out from here. If you do want to see more content from me, I post daily educational Rogue Company content here and stream over on twitch.tv/RelentlessGaming. Make sure you go check me out on those platforms and make sure you subscribe to this channel as well. All the links you need are down in the description below, but other than that guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember, be loyal, be brave, be relentless, and I'll catch you in the next video.